Welcome, everyone, to Rock M Radio. This is a brand new episode of Dive Cuts. We are here to talk all things about your Missouri basketball Tigers. I am your host, Sam Snelling. You can see right down here. What am I doing here? Right down here. There we go. I'm still getting used to this. I'll never be used to it. Rock M Plus. Here live with our Rock M Plus subscribers. To my right, to your right, if you're watching this, is Matt Watkins. We're going to talk all about this transfer portal. We are on like week 4 or something like that of the transfer portal. Things are happening. Matt Watkins, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am fine. The news of last week was a lot. We spoke. I mean, you and I talk all the time, and especially a lot now that Matt Harris has been overseas. I feel like it's just us, just talking to each other. But we spoke for a broadcast last week, and at that point, Mizzou had just gotten a commitment from Warwick and from Perkins, and they would proceed as we so depthly tipped off to everybody that they would also get Mark Mitchell. That happened on Friday. Then the news sort of got out that Jevon Porter was going to sign with Loyola Marymount. Understandable decision. We'll get to that. And so now, Jordan Butler has since entered the transfer portal.
And exited.
What's that?
And exited.
You're right. It didn't take long. And then, so now we're at a point where Missouri is now actively hunting for a post presence. We have some people that we believe that they are interested in, and we're going to talk about them. But before we get to like the bag of disappointment for a lot of Missouri fans at this point, let's do like good stuff, which is realistically, like, this has been nearly a home run, if not a home run, of a transfer portal season. Dennis Gates has massively upgraded the roster for at least what was projected to come back. Tony Perkins, great pickup. Marcus Warwick, another great pickup. But probably not arguably, the most notable pickup, and I don't want to forget Jacob Cruz, but he was that happened so long ago.
Years.
We're talking more recent things. Is Mark Mitchell. Like, there's no question that Mark Mitchell, a former 5-star kid coming back home, close enough, gonna play at Mizzou, is a huge news story.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess now, when he was being recruited, his recruitment was a big thing to follow around here. Konza Martin was firmly in the mix, but never firmly in contention, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think Mark had always had his Mark had always had his eyes set on bigger prizes at that point in time. And both him and Aiden Shaw were coming out of Kansas at the same time. And I remember watching film between Mark and Aiden playing one another, and the talent is definitely there. And the thing about it is, with Mark, to kind of jump around here, you'll hear some people online and even informed people say, well, he was a good player at Duke, but he wasn't a great player. Well, I would kind of push back on that. The guy was averaging 11, 12 points a game as a sophomore on an Elite Eight squad. Were they really an Elite Eight squad? Maybe not, but they were a legitimate team, and we're talking about Duke here.
They were in the Elite Eight. They were top 10 in KenPom.
Right.
So
Duke had an opportunity to recruit over him, didn't do it, couldn't do it. And Duke brings in blue chip guy after blue chip guy. So there should be a lot of excitement, I think, with Mizzou fans about Mark Mitchell. He's not only local, but he has production at this level and he has immense upside, which is a very rare combination that you can get in the portal, especially at Mizzou, really for anyone. When you look at the top end portal guys, a lot of them are upperclassmen from mid or low major players, or low major conferences that have huge production. Max Asmus from Oral Roberts a year ago. You look at guys like Tucker DeVries this year from Drake, both very, very good players, and they did well and will do well at the next level. But, as far as having a guy who has legitimate NBA talent and possibilities, that's not something that you're normally getting when you're recruiting in the spring, and Mizzou got that. So it's huge news.
Yeah, I think before the season, he was on like not like lottery level draft pick, but he was on a lot of draft boards. People were talking about Mark Mitchell possibly kind of taking a step into being a legitimate NBA prospect, and he still is a legitimate NBA prospect. It's just it's hard to kind of teach 6'9", 230 that moves like that. With Mitchell, he does so many things well that for the NBA it becomes, well, like the one thing that we really want you to do, you don't do that well,
right?
And that's shoot the basketball, with any sort of distance. I mean, he is really efficient around the rim. He is good, as a finisher. He's a strong, athletic guy. But the 3-point shot really hasn't come around, and which is obviously NIL is always going to be a factor with a lot of these, recruitments. I don't want to downplay that, but I think it does give Dennis Gates an advantage to be able to pull up tape from a couple of years ago, point out that Kobe Brown was a middling 25% 3-point shooter for much of his career, and then lo and behold, Dennis Gates shows up, and all of a sudden Kobe Brown is shooting 40+% from 3-point range. He's becoming a dynamic playmaker, and I think you put on that film, you show Mark Mitchell kind of like what you envision him to be in your offense, and I feel like that's a pretty easy sell.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and not only with Kobe Brown, that's the prototype. That's the position he's going to play, and there was definite improvement. But even a guy like Tamar Bates, who he knew very well in high school, came over from Indiana, different position, but similar setup. Transfers out of a blue blood where he kind of I don't want to say reached his ceiling, but it kind of bumped into a ceiling of sorts. Tamar comes back to Mizzou and has a massive year last year. You have both the how and the why when you put those two guys together. So, I think it's those two guys are really something that Dennis Gates could have pointed to in this recruitment to really sell Mark Mitchell on the idea of, hey, you come here and you're not only going to get time and get whatever NIL you're going to get a better future plan than you would have had battling for minutes with a future lottery pick at Duke.
Yeah. So the benefit of basically being able to insert a guy like Mark Mitchell into your lineup automatically is going to give you a boost. I think you kind of ran the lineup data for what, at least through Torvik, and there's still a lot of moving pieces out there. There's a lot of teams that will probably normally end up higher than Missouri in Torvik's rankings, but where did the Tigers kind of end up when you sort of factored in the guys that they've already added?
I think it was something like in the mid 40s, and I'll add the caveat that I like Torvik. I like his system. I don't believe in all of it, and it's nothing that he does right or wrong. It's just the limits of what you can do with statistics without looking at them at a very granular level, and with that amount of teams, you simply can't do it. But
he did have kind of like a high amount of like minutes played and usage for Kurt Lewis last year, if I remember correctly.
the JUCO players are a definite flaw in his system, and it's not just Kurt Lewis. It's every JUCO guy that's come in to Mizzou has had inflated numbers because he plugs in those numbers. I'm not sure the exact weight he gives them, but they're weighted too high.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to look at. And what I really look at is how he has the usage and minutes broken down among the players. And to my eye, which I've been doing projections the last few years for Mizzou, I can kind of see whether those are on plane. And I think for the most part, they are this year. There's nothing that I look at and say, wow, that I don't see that at all. I might have a little bit of adjustments here and there, but for the most part, I think it's solid. And honestly, when I look at the pieces that have come in and I've tried to keep up with what everyone else is doing, I think it's, I think that's about where I would have them. If you had to ask me today, hey, Matt, where do you think Mizzou's going to finish on paper next year? It would be about there.
Yeah, I think barring something drastically changing in like the the space at the 5, when you kind of were going into this offseason, what you wanted to see is you wanted to see answers at guard. Mm-hmm. Now you have answers at guard. And, having a little bit more playmaking. And while, Mark Mitchell hasn't been asked to be a playmaker, I think he's certainly capable of kind of being that guy. And at worst, you're getting, even if you get the guy that he was at Duke, you're getting a guy who's hyper efficient in and around the rim, is going to rebound, is going to defend. And then, if Dennis Gates is able to kind of unlock that last part of his game, like I feel like, that's where you can kind of get into the excitement level. We'll just kind of say, put it that way. So answers at the 5 kind of take us to our next segment here, which is going to highlight, and we're going to start with, I guess, a little bit of disappointment for a lot of Missouri fans. And that's Jevon Porter, his decision to skip out on a homecoming back in Columbia with his family still living there, and chose to stay with Lorenzo Romar, who is now an assistant at Loyola Marymount. This seemed to kind of be trend, like the longer the recruitment kind of went on, and then you kind of had the double whammy of Jonte Porter and his kind of getting banned by the NBA the same week that Coben was sentenced for, I believe, 6 years for his part in a drunk driving accident that killed somebody. Pretty tough week for the Porters. And while, I do think that there is some advantage for, a kid like that coming back home and being closer to home, there's also a much bigger advantage to sort of playing out of the limelight at a place like Loyola Marymount, where, there's really not a lot of media attention. Missouri basketball isn't the top, sports team in Columbia. It's probably Mizzou football, but it's probably second. And when basketball season rolls around, there's going to be a big spotlight on the team, and thus that's going to expose him to probably a lot more like media attention than maybe you need, kind of coming out of all the things that happened to the family this past week.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then on top of that, the whole reason why Jevon was available was because of Lorenzo Romar getting fired by Pepperdine. And Romar ended up taking an assistant job with Loyola Marymount. So the math here is pretty simple. You could come home and yes, there would be attention, but not only that, you probably want it to be a good thing coming home to Mizzou. These circumstances may not be that for the family. And you have the option of playing for the guy who you already chose to play for once, just down the road. To me, I think it made a lot of sense, and I guess it was about a week ago before we came on our last podcast that, we had kind of been hearing that earlier that Jevon was, oh yeah, it's going to happen, and then it just kind of started fizzling. No one came out and said Jevon is not happening, but it was more like we need certainty, we need to get things moving, that sort of thing. And you just kind of put it together because they weren't talking about Mark Mitchell. We knew that was going to happen. They weren't talking about Marquez Warwick or Tony Perkins. Those had already happened. The the math was getting pretty simple on what they needed to move on. So, had Jevon committed 4 weeks ago, not long after he entered the portal, I don't think anything would have changed. It was just it was a matter of circumstance and events leading up to it that kind of put a what's the word I'm looking for? A stop to
it. a damper, maybe.
A damper. There you go.
Yeah, that's maybe not a full stop, but there definitely was a lot of momentum lost.
Right.
And we potted, before Matt Harris left, and I think you were the one who was sort of like the most pro Jevon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say I was anti. I don't think that was really kind of fair in my position. More neutral. Like I could see the advantages that he would bring. But I also sort of like looked at who he was as a player, and and this is still kind of my belief. Like I think what you really want out of this roster is you want playmaking at the 4 spot. Mark Mitchell is probably going to play a good amount of minutes at the 4. If he's not playing at the 4, provided Trent Pierce is back, you kind of hope he's able to kind of step into that role. You have Aiden Shaw in the 4 spot. Realistically, it was going to push Jevon Porter to playing a lot of the 5. And no disrespect to Jevon, I don't really think that he is a kind of guy who you want playing a lot of minutes at the 5. He's very much a natural 4. He's skilled. He can shoot. If it wasn't a situation where Mark Mitchell was going to be on the roster, I think Jevon Porter makes a lot more sense. But once Mitchell became like a real option, I think it sort of, and not that they wouldn't have taken. I still think they would have taken Jevon, and they would have figured out how to play with those guys. But for me, I think it makes more sense to have the roster as it is now without him. When you have Mark Mitchell, than with both those guys. Like I feel like at this point, you need somebody who can eat up more consistent minutes at the 5 spot.
Well, we're going to find out if they can find someone, because we had someone leave, didn't we?
Yeah.
Is that a good segue? Is that what comes up next?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to talk about it a little bit.
I tried.
So this is the next segment here is what did happen, and this was a little bit of a surprise. Clearly, based upon how quickly he went in and out of the portal, there were some back channel conversations. I don't really get upset when these things happen. I don't know why anybody would. Look, I mean, for whatever reason, Jordan Butler decided that Missouri was no longer the best situation for him. Whether that was coaches telling him what he needed to work on and him not kind of wanting to be that, whether it was, him looking at evaporating minutes at the 4 and him wanting to play the 4 more. I can't answer those things. Only Jordan Butler and his family can answer those things. What I do know is that Jordan Butler leaving was not a good thing for Missouri. Can they recover? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, let's be honest. He was a freshman at up and down season. You could see the potential. He started to kind of grow more towards the end of the year and look better, but he was still like not a guy who was giving you a lot. And even with this offseason of growth, there's still not a guy I don't think they were going to be counting on to give you a lot next year. I thought he could contend for a starting position at the 5. I thought he could, be a role guy in that. But I didn't foresee him becoming, the guy who makes the jump as a sophomore and becomes an NBA draft prospect. So with that said, still doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt you, because from a depth perspective, the one area where you have big question marks is at the center position. So now you're without the guy who probably played the most coming back to the roster. The only guys coming in next year are both freshmen, and you really have nobody remaining on the roster who can kind of consistently be that. And I think, sure, you can play somebody there. Well, you're right. Somebody's there's gonna be a fifth guy in the court, and I kind of said this on the the Rock M forums. Like, one thing you kind of have to keep in mind in all this is you're gonna play five guys. Somebody is gonna have to defend the five, and whoever that is technically the five. But the way Missouri runs, their offense, it matters a lot less who the five is. It's about who's going to guard who. And if your opponent has somebody like Tolu Smith, well, who's going to guard Tolu Smith, right? And Tolu Smith is not going to be guarded. He's going to be playing professionally somewhere. But just using that as an example, you play Florida, and they have 12,000 post players. Who is going to guard those guys? And so somebody with size like Trent Pierce can certainly switch and be in that situation and caught up in playing. It's very likely that you might see some minutes of Mark Mitchell at the five. You're probably going to see Aiden Shaw play the five. And I would trust those guys to kind of defend that spot a little bit more, than maybe Trent Pierce at this point. But Butler leaving certainly leaves a little bit of a hole that we didn't really want to see at this point.
No, I'd agree with that. I was expecting a jump from Jordan Butler, and we may still see it, just in a different Columbia. I don't know that I would have expected him to be an all-conference player, an NBA guy next year, but if you could actually get him to improve enough to earn the minutes that he got this last year, we're talking 10 minutes a night, maybe 15 minutes a night, and be quality. That's a big, big thing, especially with this roster that doesn't have another spot there. Because then when you're looking at the last remaining portal edition this year, you can go look at a guy who's playing 10, 15 minutes, or projects to play 10, 15 minutes a night, and voila, you've got 75% of your minutes covered at the five. You can play small for 10 minutes. You can, if one of those two guys that you add, either Butler or the new guy, is better than you expected, you can play him more. It's a lot easier to do the math than it is right now when you've got Trent Burns and Peyton Marshall coming in, who've never played a minute of college basketball, as being your only options. One of those guys is probably going to play pretty decent minutes this year. Whereas had you brought in another guy to go with Butler, one of those guys could play 5 minutes a night, 5-10 minutes a night, and see how it goes. But now you don't have that option of saying, hey, we just want you to play a couple minutes, develop you along. They're going to need minutes from that, depending on who they pick up in the portal, which at this point, all signs to me point towards a more of a, I don't want to call it depth, because that's negative connotation, but perhaps not a frontline starting center.
Bargain bin.
Yeah, I would say that's a negative connotation too, although I get the gist of it. But yes, if you're looking for a Zach Edey to show up in Columbia next year, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
You want to break some news. The Missouri football Tigers, just got a commitment from Jack Lang, or maybe Langy.
Okay.
Who is a 4-star offensive tackle from Eureka, Missouri.
How tall is he?
I don't know that he can play the center, and I believe he's going to be a senior this upcoming year. So,
okay.
So he's probably still a year away. But hey, good for Eli Drinkwitz. I think they also got a transfer offensive tackle earlier today from SMU. good things happening, recruiting all around.
Mm-hmm.
So let's pivot to bad things. Let's talk about bargain bin bigs.
Okay.
So I don't want to completely phrase it that way, but it does seem clear that at this point Missouri is out of the Jaden Quaintance
Mm-hmm.
sweepstakes. It does seem like whatever potential pool of money that they were able to sort of cobble together for Quaintance, if you wanted to commit, does not exist for maybe some other guys who could be available. There are guys on that are still out in the transfer portal that you and I and even our vacationing Englander are big fans of. And you do have a list on the Rock M forums
I do.
Of guys that you like and kind of ranked by how much you like them. Who's at the top of your list?
Oh gosh, I I think I adjusted it the other day. Someone who I do not anticipate Mizzou being a strong player for was at the top of the list. I believe it was Andrew Carr at Wake Forest. Very good player, super senior. I don't think Mizzou is going to be in play there, but he's very good, very offensive minded. Um,
That
but
is correct. Andrew Carr was your number one.
How about that? Don't ask me who the number two was. I don't. I don't know that I could tell you that. But,
Number two for you was Felix Okpara.
Yes, another good player that kind of same story except the opposite. Very defensive minded. Also, Mizzou, I don't expect to be a big player for.
It looks like he's probably going to end up at Tennessee.
Get to see him anyway, right?
Yeah.
Do they come to Mizzou Arena? It's not important, but that would make for a better quip on my part. But
I don't know that we know that yet. The schedule is going to be very different next year because there are going to be 16 teams instead of 14 teams. I don't know if the plan is to stick with the 18 game format, but we'll find out. I actually, I just maybe they've said, I just don't remember. So number 3 is on your list is Florida commit Ruben Chinyelu. Number 4 still available. The child prodigy of a former Mineral Area College standout.
Look at that.
I gotta make the reference there. So Kason Pryor, right? For anybody that doesn't know, I'm actually just going to type it here on one of these banners. So I know it looks like Kashawn, but it is Kason.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I
this was the announcers on TV.
I typed it wrong there. But yeah, Pryor. Is, there we go. Pryor. Kason Pryor. So yeah, his dad is a Chicago area guy. He was a little older than Dennis Gates. He played at Mineral Area College in between my brother and myself. So that's kind of an interesting little thing. So my brother was there 89, 90, and 90, 91. He was there 93, 94, 94, 95. I got there in 96, 97, and 97, 98. So that is the reason that I have to bring up that he went to Mineral Area. And he produced a very fun player. Kason is he is a joy to watch. Like if you appreciate JUCO basketball, like he is the quintessential like JUCO baller. Like he's got a little bit of up and down game. Like he'll talk some trash. He will get after it. And he's available. And apparently like there's some connections with the Mizzou staff, although it doesn't really seem based on our hunting that Mizzou is super deep in the mix. I know that Pryor's also kind of going through the NBA stuff, so it's possible he may be trying to kind of focus on that. But it doesn't seem like Mizzou is like actively trying to get too involved there.
Well, I wouldn't say that we know that so much. He's got an extensive list of schools after him. It was big, who's who. I remember UConn was on it. I don't remember the specific schools, but it was like an NCAA tournament roster, of teams that were interested in his services. So I think it's more an impression from us that it's kind of a longer shot proposition just because of all the schools that are involved. But I do think Mizzou's interested. There's a lot of connections there. There's a lot of reasons why he makes sense at Mizzou. I wouldn't say that there's a lack of interest. It's more about the attainability, I believe, that would cause me to have a little bit of pause on starting the Kaysen Pryor to Mizzou choo-choo train.
Real quick. So his list is UConn, Arizona, Michigan, Gonzaga, Louisville, Illinois, Ole Miss, Texas Tech, Arkansas, USC, Mississippi State, Ohio State, SMU, Missouri, Villanova. Hey, got in there before Villanova. Wisconsin. That would be hilarious. Cincinnati, Minnesota, Washington, Arizona State, Utah, VCU, and DePaul.
A lot of schools. A lot of good schools.
That is a lot of schools. Not all of them good, but a lot of good schools are on there.
I would say that Mizzou is interested. I think they would go that route if he just called up one day and said, "Hey Dennis, I just want to play for you. I've never considered another school in my life. Can I come play for Mizzou?" I don't think there would be any hesitancy about that. But as far as not only winning the recruiting battle, but also waiting for him to go through the NBA process, that's a extended, drawn out period, and if he does decide to go to the NBA and go test the waters, so to speak, you're kind of left high and dry without any options when that time comes in the summer. So, there's multiple considerations that you have there, but he's a very talented player. He's unique in a lot of ways. He's a 6'10", 6'11" guy who does very much play like a guard.
He'd be perfect for the system, really. Like maybe you lose some defense, but Lord knows Dennis Gates is used to that part. So I brought him up on the screen for those who are watching along on YouTube. This guy is an absolute beautiful specimen. This hair is fantastic. The headband, all of it is great.
I just want to see at some point in my life Caleb Grill, Jacob Cruz, and Kaysen Porter playing on the same team at the same time, all on the court together. The reaction to that by opponents would just be worth the cost of admission. They all play with an edge. They all have, I think Jacob Cruz might have cut his hair, but they all have unique hairstyles. They're a funky group, and I want to see it. But
I support that. I mean, that's honestly that's like half the reason I kind of want him at the 5. Yes, it would be good offensively. There is no doubt that he absolutely fits. His profile is perfect for kind of like what Dennis Gates wants to do with his 5-out stuff. But also, he's just fantastic looking, and
he's got those mineral area connections too.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We need more mineral area Cardinal, blood in the Mizzou program.
We joked earlier that Jacob Cruz might be the new Sam Snelling, but could it be Kaysen Porter?
Maybe.
Kaysen Pryor. I'm sorry.
I feel like Daryl Butterfield is the last Matt Cardinal to make his way to Columbia.
And what a sterling career he had.
Hey, he was solid. Wasn't he one of the guys that got in the fight though? At
the nightclub. Yeah,
I believe so. What was the name of that nightclub? Athena.
Yes, you're right.
the Athena nightclub, which honestly, like, I still think that incident and what followed is what really kind of spurred Mike Anderson, and because it forced him to sit some guys who were, helping them kind of be competitive, but guys who weren't going to help grow that program. Mm-hmm. And maybe, no disrespect, Butterfield, he's probably one of them. I was more thinking of, it wasn't, not Jason Horton, who was the point guard who was really good, like really good scorer, JUCO guy who, we're really kind of going down a sidetrack here.
Let's get back on topic
and talk about more Kaysen. So moving on from Kaysen Pryor, who are some other bigs? You want me to give you your list?
I think I can probably handle the next one. It's another guy who I kind of like, and I believe Matt Harris kind of likes, and it's not just because he was in Europe, but Bint Leuchten. He's a German who spent his last 3 years at UC Irvine. I believe he's 7'1", has kind of a unique skill set for 7'1", but he's sturdy. He's not a 7'1" twig. He's got some skills. We're looking at guys that are probably going to come in and play 10 to 15 minutes a night, and if that is the role, if that's what you're recruiting for, I really like Leuchten's fit. I've watched quite a bit of film on him in Harris's absence. I just don't have the film sharing capabilities that the other Matt has, but I have taken in a lot. And if you have to believe me, because I would have known to pronounce it Leuchten had I not been watching the announcers. So, yeah, I mean, he's good.
You got his first name down, though, right? Like, you can pronounce that without problem?
Bint. I hope that's how they pronounce it. I honestly didn't hear that part on TV. But, yeah, Bint Leuchten. The thing that you'll see about him is that at Irvine, they don't play super fast, but they go really, really deep into the roster. I was just looking at this today. This last season, Russell Turner, the coach at Irvine, played 11 guys 10 minutes or more every night. So you've got a rotation of 3 big men, including Carter Welling, who's also a very impressive player as a freshman. So he was rolling bodies in and out. So Jamie Shaw caught some flack today for posting his per 40 minutes on the tweet about who had contacted him. But I think there's some validity to that. I watched one particular game when he was playing against USC. One of the other bigs got in foul trouble, and I believe at that point in time they were trying to redshirt Welling. And he was playing 25, 30 minutes in that game, and I think he ended up with 17 points and 8-10 rebounds, something like that, against USC wasn't good this year, but they're a high major team on the road.
And they were an athletic high major team. Like, right. That they weren't good this year because they, it wasn't because they didn't have some good players, because the locker room just never quite meshed.
Correct. And this was very early in the season too. I think he can play more minutes than he was playing. I don't think he was only playing 12 minutes a night because that's all the coach believed he could play. I think that's just the way they play. In the time that I watched that he was playing, he's got good post moves. He's not super athletic, but he's 7'1", sturdy, and knows how to wall up around the rim. And when you're 7'1" and can wall up around the rim, that's imposing. You're not going to see him flying down from the free throw line, hanging huge poster dunks or anything. But, he dribbles. He can dribble the ball. He's mostly a ball mover with the passing. He's not much of a he's not a Kobe that's making amazing passes or throwing guys open, but he's capable of having the ball in his hands. Defensively, they mostly had him playing in drop coverage, which in screen and roll, drop coverage just means that the big is hanging back in the lane, being imposing, hands up, inviting guys to take mid-range jumpers, not letting guys get to the rim. And while that's not ideal, when you watched him, he was well coached in what he was doing. He was always communicating with the screens, which we've talked about that a lot with Mizzou and how they did not do that. But he's a solid player, and I think that he can play at the high major level. I think he is not going to be an all-conference player, but he could very well be a valuable piece of a 10, 11-man rotation at Mizzou, especially for a team lacking exactly what he brings. He does shoot the ball. It's not his strength, but he at least has the threat of doing that, where some of the other guys we've looked at are purely paint-dominated players.
Yeah, I want to do some eliminating here because you do have some other names in the list.
Sure.
Pharrell Payne, from
Perfect
Minnesota,
fit.
a guy that I liked a lot when they played
Mm-hmm.
him. I thought he would be, he's a good defensive, presence, physical guy. He committed to Texas A&M. That was your perfect fit.
Absolutely, he's amazing.
Yeah, just guy who will attack the rim. We also had Justin Abson, who is a nice shot blocker from App State. He committed to Georgia. I believe that was today.
Yes, it was.
Vince Iwuchukwu from USC. Speaking of USC, one of the many underachieving players off that roster is going to try his luck with St. John's and Rick Pitino.
And those guys were locking heads, Loishton and Iwuchukwu in that game, and I would say Ben got the better of them.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I'm going to give Rick Pitino the benefit of the doubt here and think that he could probably get some more production out of Iwuchukwu. But
there's a lot of ceiling there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a guy that I would have checked in. I mean, obviously, I think he's probably going to come with a bit of a higher price tag. But
I believe he's a former 5-star.
Yeah, he was a top 30 player, I think. William Kyle is on your list, South Dakota State. He is a lot like Aiden Shaw, maybe a little more physical, but bouncy. He committed to UCLA. Sam Walters from Alabama is a guy who was a bit of more of a stretch 4 type,
more of a wing, really, but yeah,
like a big wing, a big slow wing. But he's going to go to Michigan. Brad Izero,
SLU guy.
Izero. I never figured out how to say his name, even though I did watch some SLU games. He was at SLU. Before that, he was at Georgetown, and before that, he was at LSU. Now he's going to go play for UAB and AK, our guy, AK Hive. And then the last one is Omaha Biliu, who is, I don't know if he's really a true 5. He's just sort of a athletic guy, kind of wing-ish. But he's going to Wake Forest.
He's big, and the list is malleable.
Yeah, it's like, I think he's a wing like the same way like Aiden Shaw is a wing. So you kind of list him as a big because he doesn't really do much outside of a few things. And he didn't really get to do much at Iowa State, which is why he's transferring.
The fact that he's not going to Creighton is a shame, though. I mean, come on. Omaha?
Yeah. It does whittle the list. We do know that Mizzou has interest in Carlton Lingard, who is a nice athlete from UTSA. AJ Brown, I'm assuming, is how we're going to pronounce that. Or is it Braun?
It's not like the Parkers. It's Braun, as you would expect it to be.
That's how it should be. That's how it should be.
Like Lloyd Braun, Seinfeld.
Yeah. Braun. Give me Brown. And Beakers. But AJ, not the swiftest of feet. Not a guy who is going to blow you away with his athleticism. He does shoot the ball with a pretty high efficiency around the rim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a big post-up guy. Believe last year he had something like 43% of his offense came from post-ups, traditional post-ups. And he was among the nation's best in converting them. I've watched a fair amount of film on him, and he's very good at creating space. He's listed at 6'9", so give or take. He doesn't wow you with any quick spin moves, and he's not going over or through guys, but he uses his body well to create a little bit of space to get up get shots up on the rim. And I mean, he's got soft touch. I'll give him that. He finishes well for what the good Lord gave him. You know, he does well with his limitations. So I will say that. And then going back to Lingard, you know, I actually watched a little bit today. I saw Mizzou had reached out, did the profile, and I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know about this one. He had spent his first 2 years, I believe, at K-State before transferring to Texas San Antonio. And I'm always kind of leery when a guy drops down and immediately has some success. You know, you see a guy who's 7 feet tall, very athletic, really well built too. And you're like, this guy should dominate at this level. And he really didn't dominate. But then you kind of peel back some of the onion, and you see he was taking like 50-60% of his shots were jumpers. You know, he shot like 29% behind the 3-point line and was shooting them as much as guards do. He has a good looking shot. It's not to say that he should never shoot, but you know, it makes me wonder if the coaching staff at UTSA is just like, hey, you come down here, we'll let you do what you want to do, if we can get you in the door. And you know, he's got a really good frame. He's got a good build. He's not the best defender yet, but I think he can be. He's one of those guys that after I watched the film, I was more impressed with him than I was having just looked at the numbers, which is not common, but it does happen. So, yeah, I mean, he could really make some money overseas, most likely, as a guy if he really committed to being an offensive rebound machine and working in pick and rolls as a pick and pop guy or a rim roller. There's a few clips where they were just throwing the ball up and he was going up and getting it and hammering it down. I mean, he's an athletic. He's very impressive athletically, and you know, I think there's something there. But you're also looking at a guy who's going to be available for 1 year, and you've got a limited runway to get that out of him. So that's kind of the give or take on that.
Yeah, that is. I think that is sort of like, you know, a part of this here is I don't think they want to tie, you know, too much up into, you know, a guy, because I do think that they're, you know, big time buyers on Peyton Marshall. And I do think they want to give a developmental year for Trent Burns. You know, so if you're trying to build that runway, what you're really realistically looking for is for, you know, like Marshall to be able to give you 10 to 15 minutes. You're hoping that you can have somebody who can, you know, have you redshirt Burns. I think that's always been on the table and what they would ideally want to do. And so you're looking for somebody who could probably give you 15 to 18 minutes. You don't need anybody who's going to. Now, I mean, I do think if they were able to get somebody like Pryor, I think you'd take that north of 20.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Pryor's also a guy who can give you minutes at the 4 with the way he plays. You can play alongside
and with him
Marshall.
And not to jump over you, but with him and Mark Mitchell on the floor at the same time, it's kind of a distinction without a difference. You know, you're going to be switching all over the place. So, you know, it doesn't really matter so much who you're guarding. You know, if whoever grabs the big is the first one that gets there, and then they go switch the ball screen. You know, to me, it's not a big difference because they're similar players. You know, but sorry to jump in.
No. You know, that is a fair point, but I think it's also kind of like part of, you know, when you're kind of building this roster, how are you going to kind of, you know, distribute these minutes? You know, if they can put together a package that lures Pryor, I think that's the best fit.
For sure.
Loyston to me is not a bad backup. I think once you kind of get past that, I have a lot more questions. I would do a lot to see if you can kind of get, you know, Pryor on campus and in. I know that the list there was long, but you know, there's a reason why you have these relationships to begin with. You know, and
there are a lot of connections between Pryor and the staff. You know, I believe it might have been Pete Bland was tweeting out a lot of them. You know, but some Mizzou staffers had recruited him out of high school to Eastern Michigan. You know, obviously Dennis Gates and I believe was it Mark Pryor? No, that's the pitcher. Sean Pryor. You know, came up from the same time in Chicago, and I believe they have a relationship. You know, spending time on the JUCO route. this staff has a lot of JUCO connections. I believe Pryor's Northwest Florida team played Kyle Smith-Peters' younger brother's John Logan team with Kurt Lewis in the championship game last year. So these guys, they know each other. I've kind of dabbled in the JUCO info with Mizzou bringing some guys in and talking with guys around, and everyone knows everyone. It's a very small, close-knit society, so to speak. So it would not be surprising if there's even more connections that we're not aware of. But I agree with you. Pryor, he's a guy that starts, and I don't think any of these other guys immediately project as starters for Mizzou, and that's kind of the difference. Although starting versus not is not that important, but what I mean by starting is top 5 in minutes on the team, and I think Pryor would be that for sure.
Well, that's all I've got.
We lost one more player. I feel as if it's worth mentioning. Caleb Brown transferred out on Monday.
Shout out to Jesse Bishop.
I didn't want to neglect him. We've discussed everyone else that's came and gone on the roster. It didn't work out for him this year with the injury. Didn't have major contributions, but the family's been big for Mizzou athletics, and never heard a bad word about Caleb around the program. So, best of luck to him and wherever he's heading. Maybe it'll be Missouri State. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
I'm kidding a bit for those that are on the forums. Jesse was always holding my feet to the fire on including Caleb. It was our understanding that he was back in Mizzou as like preferred walk-on, and name, image, and likeness money was basically paying for him to go to school and all that kind of stuff. It's the same kind of thing. At some point you have to wonder if a guy wants to play. And I think there was a legitimate question for Caleb that, we like what you bring to the locker room. We like who you are. We think you're like an awesome kid, but you're not going to play here. I think that was evident through the opportunities that they gave him. That's one of those conversations that's always tough to have, but because I do think that there was an earnest effort on Caleb's part to make himself like the kind of guy that they could rely on, and it just it didn't work out. Obviously, the injury doesn't help with that. But I feel like you could see even in those games, just like he's just not at the same level that you need for, at least if you're trying to kind of compete for an NCAA tournament. I do think that he can be a good player somewhere. And I am kind of curious to see where he goes, because, he is skilled. He's not as athletic as his brother is. But he passes the ball well. He sees the floor pretty well.
He's a very good passer for sure.
Yeah. If he gets to the right level, he could be a good player. So, we'll be watching the rest of his career in earnest. So notes, I guess, are that Matt Harris, I think, gets back today.
I think he's in country, if I understood his ramblings right earlier on the.
Yeah, it seems like he was at least on a plane earlier, and then that has led him to be.
Maybe he had Wi-Fi on the plane.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's probably next week we're going to make him do a podcast.
For a couple weeks, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna line him up. Well, maybe Mizzou actually gets a commitment from somebody here soon. Hopefully, not too soon. And we can kind of space these out. Because I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot to talk about unless we have some more sort of targets become available. So hopefully that's kind of where we are. But we'll get Harris back on the record and get him talking.
If nothing else, he can recount his stories of being stampeded by a lone sheep in the Highlands.
That and attending a live game with Everton, and then getting really happy today because I think Everton beat their crosstown rival Liverpool in a in a football match. Aren't you a Liverpool fan?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan of any English soccer club. Like I don't get up and watch it, but if you made me pick a team, it would be Liverpool from England.
Yeah,
I'm more pro Dortmund.
You're more of a Bundesliga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like the EPL. I just can't seem to settle on a team.
Well, we can talk about that some other time.
Yeah, I just like getting up on the weekend and whatever game is on, I'm like, I'll pick one, and that's usually you guys give me flack for being like, I like this Aston Villa team because they have fun players, and that's the Royals club. I'm like, I don't care about that.
That's in fairness, that is mostly Matt Harris. You can like whoever you want as long as it's not Arsenal. And
I've told you that the stipulations are I don't want to cheer for a London team, and I don't want a team that uses maroon. I don't like maroon's just not a color that and there's a lot of teams that have maroon, so that does eliminate quite a few of them.
Liverpool.
I also don't want it to be one of the big, what do they call them, the big six, the teams that are always, it's Liverpool. I can't believe we're still on this conversation, but it's Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United, Man City. Is Chelsea one of them?
I think so.
I don't know.
I like
whatever.
I don't care about the whole fan thing that much.
Yeah.
I just like watching the games.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. And one of my favorite players to watch is your namesake, Ollie Watkins.
We're taking over sports, not just basketball.
So with that being said, I'm going to throw this link up here for anybody who is not already subscribed. Please subscribe at Rock M Plus. We are having some great conversations on the forums. Now that Matt Harris is back, you could expect a whole lot more video.
It's going to be just.
We've been holding it down. Holding down the fort, and things are really going well. I'm excited for our community. I'm excited for what we're building. We are getting more and more involved in the football side. All that's going to happen. We've got people talking about Olympic sports. So please, if you are not already subscribed, head to Rock M Plus, get subscribed, and say hello. There's all kinds of ways to hop in and join the conversation. We will be back next week with another fresh podcast. It will be probably me and the other Matt. We'll see if this guy wants to hop in too. But yeah, more podcasting in your near future. So until then, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.